about that. I had a phone call that I tried to get off the phone and it wouldn't. The person wasn't getting my clues, so I had to say like, "Hey, I have a show started." I should know better than to answer a call just before we get started. Hi, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show. Oh, crap. Hold on. Turn on my neon. My awesome neon. Anyways, we watch old 16mm films, and we just watched some stock footage from Coronet Films. And it was 3 different reels that I kind of smushed together onto one file. And so it's a variety of different subject matter. And I like it. Beautiful footage, beautiful color, no sound though. And this is stuff that they would shoot for a specific film, and then they would just keep the outtakes for other films that they did where they thought they could use the footage. Alright, so let's get things started with an episode of Retrospect. This is a show that the Department of Civil Defense came up with, and they created it as a TV show, something that TV stations could play. And so there's some stock footage at the beginning and stock footage at the end of some sort of historical event that they talk about. And then in the middle is a public service announcement for something related to civil defense, usually related to shelter, fallout shelters. So here's Retrospect Family Interview.
This is Douglas Edwards, bringing you Retrospect, a film excursion into past events which form the patterns by which we live today.
Retrospect is brought to you by the Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization in cooperation with your local Civil Defense Office and your local station. And now here's your host, Douglas Edwards.
When Japanese planes bombed and sank the U.S. gunboat Panay on the Yangtze River in 1937, Japan expressed regrets, calling the act unintentional. But her promise of reparations was never kept. Japanese-American relations over the next 4 years became critical. In November 1941, the United States offered Japan a broad but simple settlement covering the entire Pacific area. This was Pearl Harbor as it looked in late November 1941, strategically our most important Pacific outpost. To ease the war of nerves between the two nations, the Japanese emperor sent a special envoy to Washington. But even as Mr. Kurusu spoke his reassuring words to the press and public, Japanese warplanes were winging their way toward the Pearl of the Pacific. Kurusu and Nomura, the Japanese ambassador, after holding talks with Secretary of State Cordell Hull, were taken to the White House to meet with President Roosevelt. They spoke confidently of a relaxation of tension in the Far East. Not until 1 hour after the Japanese pilots had sighted in on their targets did Tokyo finally deliver a war message to Washington. By then, of course, disaster had already struck. In these official Japanese films released after the war, we can see from the enemy's vantage point what an abundance of prime targets he had, all defenseless. Our sincerity in negotiating peace with Japan had caused the government to take no precautionary measures at Pearl Harbor. What few warnings we had received had been ignored. Even precautionary fleet dispersal was neglected. As a result, every piece of American military equipment was a sitting duck, and the attackers took full advantage of the situation. Dive bombers that had run out of bombs returned to rake the decks of all vessels with machine gun fire. Approaches to the runways at Hickam Field were blocked by fires and explosions, rendering our Air Force impotent. With most of our sea power concentrated in the Atlantic, this was the golden moment for which the Tokyo warlords had waited so long. Their use of the element of surprise worked to perfection. With a relatively small attacking force, Japan succeeded in all but demolishing a vital military outpost of the greatest power in the world. On December 8th, we added up the damage. Altogether, the Japanese sank 6 battleships, sank or crippled almost every other vessel in the harbor, destroyed 164 planes, which had never even had a chance to rev up their motors, much less get off the ground, and killed 3,300 men. The salvaging operation was accomplished with amazing speed. 3 of the battleships were seaworthy again in less than 2 weeks, and the damaged light cruisers left port by January of 1942. But from whatever aspect it's viewed, the attack on Pearl Harbor remains one of the most regrettable chapters in American military history. Before a joint session of Congress, Franklin D. Roosevelt asked that Congress declare a state of war between the United States and the Empire of Japan. Roosevelt summed it up best when he called December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. While we were counting the casualties, 70 Japanese warships were sailing across the Pacific to follow up the aerial attack and occupy Hawaii. They encountered an American naval force in the Coral Sea. In the most decisive sea battle in history, we broke the back of Japanese naval power. But how much sooner the war would have ended and turned in our favor had we been prepared at Pearl Harbor, we can only guess. Today we realize that preparedness is our first line of defense. Have you ever wondered what it would be like for you and your family to spend 7 days completely isolated from the outside world? Well, today on Retrospect, we'll meet a family who did just that. Here are Mr. and Mrs. Douglas Brown of Topeka, Kansas, who, with their children, spent a full week in an 8 by 11-foot fallout shelter. Does this young man represent your entire family, Mr. Brown?
No, we have others.
Could we meet them?
Yes. Vicky? And Connie? And Denny? Scott? Larry? Wes? And Deanne?
And another beauty.
And this is Russell.
I was about to say that I thought it was about time we introduced this gentleman. Well, that's a lot of little people, but I must say they're very charming. Tell me just why, Mr. Brown, did you and company decide to spend a week in a fallout shelter?
Well, we're in the business of building fallout shelters, and we wanted to find out what some of the problems were that would arise. And also, we wanted to find out just exactly what our family would need to have in a shelter.
Well, Mrs. Brown, I imagine you had a few problems along the way, for a first time anyway. What was your biggest problem?
The biggest problem was keeping the children from becoming bored and fighting with each other.
How did you handle that?
We had an abundance of games and toys, and we controlled their play. We had talent shows. We had regular times for everything that we did, and we all did it together so that everybody was working with each other.
Did you have any real police work to do along the way during the 7 days with the kids?
Oh, yes. We had to control them very closely. That was the one thing that we found was quite necessary.
Some well-knit and close rules and regulations, I take it.
That's right.
Mrs. Brown, how did you manage to cook for all those youngsters and yourselves?
When the electricity was on, we used an electric hot plate, but when the electricity was off, we used a sterno burner.
Well, just what did you cook?
We had canned foods of all kinds, especially the prepared meals like spaghetti and meatballs, that type of food. But we did find that we should have had more cold meats and cold foods that can be eaten directly from the can rather than having to be heated.
What did the youngsters like, Mrs. Brown?
They took very well to the dried fruits, the raisins, the dried prunes and apricots. We also had some hard candy and some of those miniature chocolate bars, and those went over quite big.
Sounds pretty normal.
Yes.
Outside or inside? Mr. Brown, what did you learn about your own shelter preparedness? Was it adequate?
Yes, we found that we had spent a great deal of time in preparing our shelter, and it was well worth it.
Well, that's very good indeed. Another question for you, Mrs. Brown. What did you find to be the most useful items in your shelter?
The first aid kit came in use within the first 20 minutes of being inside the shelter.
That's par for the course, too. What
Right.
happened? I trust nothing serious.
One of the boys stuck his hand into the blower that brings the fresh air into the shelter and received numerous cuts on his finger, and we had to put the first aid kit into use immediately.
Well, a question for both of you, Mr. and Mrs. Brown. At any time, did you think of giving up?
Yes, we did. About halfway through our stay, why, we become very depressed. But it was the children's attitude that really changed our ideas for us. And their desires to actually finish the test is what changed our minds.
Well, good for them. And one final question. Do you plan to build a larger shelter for children ranging in age, let's see, from 11 months to 11 or?
7 months to
7
11
to
years.
11. You're going to build a bigger one?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Brown. On Retrospect today, it is possible that someday all of us may face the same problems in shelter living. Only it will not be an experiment. It could be a matter of survival. We can all take our cue from the Browns and prepare now, so no matter what happens, our families will be protected. A well-known movie mogul once claimed there was nothing wrong with the box office that good pictures wouldn't cure. He was addressing a group of his fellow movie moguls. It went without saying that good pictures were those that could boast of a great box office attraction. In other words, one or more of the celluloid kings or queens whose very presence in a movie ensures it of financial success. Since the movies became a commercial proposition, the noiseless foot of time has snuffed out all manner of cycles, eras, and innovations, but the box office idols go on. Serials or cliffhangers made a movie queen of Pearl White. Death moved in on her every Saturday, and she always escaped miraculously the following week. But audiences ate it up. Charlie Chaplin, surely the king of the clowns. His box office popularity was phenomenal, and no man before or since has had more imitators. William S. Hart, he brought the Western into popularity, and for over a decade was the king of cowboy stars. Hart's roles were always the same. He portrayed the good bad man, the two-fisted, gun-slinging critter who always remained true to the moral code of the old frontier. Until the rise of the star system, this lady was known as Little Mary. But by 1917, Mary Pickford was earning just under $1 million a year and had become America's sweetheart. Of all the screen's romantic idols, none has ever equaled the astonishing popularity of the great Latin lover, Rudolph Valentino. Shown here with Vilma Banky in The Chic, Valentino caused palpitations of the female heart in some of the most tempestuous love scenes ever filmed. In 1927, Greta Garbo and John Gilbert reigned over the nation's box offices with smoldering scenes like this one from Flesh and the Devil. In the 30s, the movies were talking and many of the old monarchs were gone. Carole Lombard was typical of the new movie queen, and she married the man who eventually came to be known as the King, Clark Gable. One of the 30s most popular stars was not yet old enough to be a queen, but Shirley Temple was surely the princess of the box office. On the dashing side, Tyrone Power came along in the late 30s to thrill the ladies with a series of swashbuckling roles that would continue his popularity through the 40s. One of the most beloved movie queens of the 40s was Judy Garland. With her, Rock Hudson, the #1 box office star of the 50s. Today, the heartthrob of America's angry young girls, Elvis Presley. Mr. Sideburns has become the most volcanic personality on the current scene. The early kings and queens, the Valentinos and the Pearl Whites, might be a trifle puzzled by a latter-day idol who could transform a you ain't nothing but a hound dog into $1 million. Today, we met a family who voluntarily conducted their own survival test, living in an actual home shelter. The Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization recommends that every family be prepared to survive on their own resources for at least 2 weeks following nuclear attack. Thousands of American families are building home shelters, low-cost insurance for survival. Take the first step today. Call your local civil defense office or write to OCDM, Battle Creek, Michigan, for shelter plans and further information on home protection. We hope you've enjoyed this glimpse into the past and that you'll be on hand next time we bring you Retrospect. This is Douglas Edwards saying goodbye for now.
Retrospect, starring Douglas Edwards, was brought to you by the Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization in cooperation with your local Civil Defense Office and your local station. Survival in the nuclear age is a personal responsibility, touching every American family. Make sure you take part. Learn the facts about civil defense preparedness. Start your home preparedness program today. The prepared family builds a prepared nation. Civil defense is an American tradition.
So, just as a reminder, this was the civil defense's attempt to get the information disseminated by offering free programming to TV stations. And they kind of created this idea of this program, Retrospect, which would use just stock footage at the beginning and the end. So that would be the interesting content for people, I guess, in TV stations. And then would sneak in that message of civil defense in the middle. And I have probably 7 or 8 different episodes of this, and they're all hosted by the same guy. I don't know when. I mean, Elvis, that kind of tells how late that was, maybe, but late 50s, early 60s? Not sure. I was looking it up in my database, and I don't have it listed, but somewhere out there you'll be able to find it. But so somebody asks in the comments, like, so what does motion picture stars have to do with civil defense? Nothing. It was the candy coating that civil defense used to say, like, hey, we have some interesting programming for you that you don't have to pay for. All you have to do is just show the whole thing, and we'll get our message across. So pretty interesting idea, and just a wide variety of different things that kind of show up as the stock footage, what they talk about. And most of it's probably sourced from National Archives or from other sources. All right, so behind me, I have a telecine hooked up, and we're going to watch a film. And this film already has had 2 splice breaks as I was threading it, so hopefully we won't have any more. This is The Big Red Barn. Enjoy. Annoying problems here. Give me a sec. One second, please. Hearing a lot of clicking. It's truly odd. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's on. Alright, let's try it. Let's see.
There was a great big horse and a very little horse. And on every barn there was a weather vane, of course, a golden flying horse. There was a big pile of hay and a little pile of hay, and that is where the children would play. But in this story, the children are away, and only the animals are here today. The sheep and the donkey and the geese and the goats were making funny noises out of their throats. An old scarecrow was leaning on his hoe. In a cornfield high, a little mouse scurried by. In the barn, there was a rooster, and a pigeon, too. And a big white hen. And under the hen was a quiet egg. There was a bantam rooster and a little bantam hen with a big clutch of eggs. You can see 10. A big brown cow and a little brown cow both ate their dinner of hay from the mow. There was an old black cat and a tiger tomcat. And an old red dog with some little puppy dogs all round and warm. And they all lived together in the big red barn. And they played all day in the grass and in the hay. Until the sun went down in the great green field. The big cow lowed. The little pig squealed. The little black bats flew away out of the barn at the end of the day. The hens were sleeping on their nests. Even the roosters took a rest. And the geese and the goats made no more noises with their throats. And there they were all night long. And only the mice were left to play, rustling and squeaking in the hay. The moon sailed high in the dark night sky. Beyond the house where the children slept, the tiger cat crept home to his kittens in the big red barn. But out in the field, the old scarecrow still leaned on his hoe.
Called that the big red shifted film. Yeah, wow. One of the things I figured out, or I've learned in going through the films, is sometimes if a library inspected a film and realized that part of it was damaged, usually the front part, because somebody didn't know how to thread a projector, so the sprockets got shredded, they could order replacement footage. They would basically say, like, we need X number of feet from this film, and they would get sent to them. And so you'd have this beautiful color footage, and then at some point it would bounce back to the older footage, which was faded, and that's what happened here. It's frustrating for those of us that are cataloging and inspecting films to kind of determine the quality of the film, because we're like, oh, this has beautiful color. No, we have to watch it all the way through to see, does it at some point switch over, which it invariably does with many things. This next film is a sponsored film by the fine folks at Campbell's, and I had been doing some work with the National Film Preservation folks, and I scanned some of my films for them, and so this is one of the films that they highlighted. It's pretty great, and it's featured in the field guide to sponsored films by Rick Prelinger, who's a mentor of mine. And so here it is, The Magic Shelf.
Some time ago, while I was visiting the island of Trinidad, I saw a very remarkable Hindu magician. He had a silk handkerchief. He took the silk handkerchief and he made a single knot, and he held it in his hand. Then he looked at it, a rather mysterious look. The handkerchief almost seemed to become alive. Would you be kind enough to act as my assistant for just a few minutes?
Of course.
I'm going to attempt something a little different, something which I rather think you may enjoy. Now, this little effect was invented by a friend of mine who happens to be a gentleman farmer. Would you mind holding the hat for just a minute? In just a moment, I'm going to place the hat on the top of the glass, and then I want you to watch very carefully and keep your eye right on the hat. And the glass inside the hat. Well, now that's the first part, but now I'm going to attempt the second part, which is a little different. We'll take this pitcher of ordinary milk, which you can see. As you see, the milk will now fill the glass, and we will again cover the glass with the silk. Many times magicians are always asked why they happen to do things undercover, but we have to sometimes. So 1, 2, 3, and the glass and milk disappear. Now, you're probably wondering where the milk went. Well, we'll take this little bag. And there we find the missing milk. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to show you my latest very colorful novelty, the rice bowls of Fu Manchu.
Now, do you mind if I do a little magic?
You? Why, of course not. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Take a bowl, fill it with tomato soup, and you have the basis for a quick, appetizing, and nutritious lunch.
Mmm, good.
Good. That's what Campbell soups are. Good.
And that's only one on the list of America's favorite lunches. Another is to combine this rich, tasteful soup with an appetizing sandwich. Or you might prefer a luncheon of soup, salad, and dessert. But maybe that's a little too much, or perhaps you're in a hurry. Well then, let's just make it soup and dessert. You see, with good, rich Campbell soup as your starting point, there are so many combinations available. But according to a nationwide survey, the most popular is, that's right, soup, sandwich, and dessert.
I don't know about the rest of the country, but it's certainly the most popular with me. But where in the world did you...
Oh, I'm not finished yet. In fact, I've just begun. Now let's take that situation when unexpected company comes. Build that quick buffet supper around a tureen. Then fill with chicken noodle soup. And you have the heart of a meal that makes you glad guests dropped in.
Well, I thought I knew every magic trick there was.
Well, maybe you do. But this is a different kind of magic. This is mealtime magic built around soup. Soup is wonderful for lunch, a quick snack, or light meal. But soup is more than soup. It adds flavor to your meals. It lends color to your table. It's a time-saving ingredient in quick cookery. It's an ideal, convenient sauce for many dishes. But let me show you. Tomato soup went into the making of this delicious beef stew. Here's a casserole dish and mushroom muffins, both made with cream of mushroom soup. Now, watch this one. Just look at the possibilities with tomato soup. Mmm, good.
Mmm, wonderful. But how do you do it?
With know-how? And the right equipment? And a full soup shelf.
Of course. Why didn't I think of it? Campbell Soups.
Yes. Here in our home economics kitchen, we keep a complete soup shelf and work just as women do in their own home kitchens. When you keep a well-stocked soup shelf based on your family's needs, you have the foundation for an endless variety of delicious meals.
Wait a minute. You're holding out on me. Do you mean that's all there is to it? A Campbell soup shelf?
A Campbell soup shelf, plus ideas. You see, women everywhere are constantly discovering new uses for soup. And in my work as Campbell's home economist, it's my job to create new ways in which soup can serve you even better. So get ready for some real mealtime magic. Remember, there are over 20 tempting, nourishing mealtime soups, and that's only the beginning. Soup combinations, soup sauces, and soup as a cooking ingredient suggest 1,001 quick, easy menu variations. Many women have told us they think Campbell's tomato soup, just as it comes from the can, makes the finest tomato cooking sauce they ever tasted. You haven't begun to realize how useful tomato soup can be until you've used it as a cooking sauce. You'll find it's just about the handiest thing on your kitchen shelf. For instance, you can use it just as it comes from the can, as a pour-on sauce over meat, fish, or vegetables. Simply season to taste and heat. It's just the right consistency for a rich, smooth-textured sauce. See, it adds zip and color to beef, pork, and fish. Do you like Spanish sauce? Well, try it made with tomato soup. It's the quick, easy way to make Spanish rice and Spanish omelet. It adds the zest of the world's finest tomatoes, carefully blended seasonings, and creamery butter. And as the basic ingredient in barbecue sauce, there's nothing to equal the fresh, zestful flavor of tomato soup. Here's something I particularly like. Cream of mushroom soup, or a delicate, flavorful mushroom cream sauce. Add 1/3 cup of milk for mushroom cream sauce. And simmer about 2 minutes. And remember to stir the sauce constantly for best results. This is a real 5-minute mushroom cream sauce. Rich, delicious, and velvet smooth. You can taste those fresh, cultivated mushrooms and whipping cream. Try it, and you'll never again make white sauce the old, slow way. This sauce is good on meat, vegetables, or poultry. Try it on fried chicken for something extra special. Then there's cream of chicken soup for sauce. Over vegetables, it's a delicious economical treat to tempt lagging appetites. For cream of chicken sauce, add 1/3 cup of milk to the soup. Cream of celery soup sauce is excellent with fish. Use 1/2 cup of milk with cream of celery. This sauce enhances the flavor of ham, too. Condensed soup has limitless possibilities as a tasty, time-saving pour-on sauce. And you don't have to remember the directions. They're on the label. But for the last word in mealtime magic, try soup as a cooking ingredient. Women are using condensed soups more and more in recipes. They're so quick and economical and add so much flavor and color. For example, tomato soup in meatloaf. Use 1/2 can of Campbell's tomato soup in your favorite meatloaf for the rich flavor, color, and moistness you are seeking. Of course, the rest of the soup, heated and seasoned, will make a delicious pour-on sauce to be served with the loaf. And tomato soup is just the thing for a rich, full-flavored spaghetti sauce. Seasoned to suit your family's taste. It shortens the sauce cooking time and is so good. The rich, ripe red color of the choice tomatoes has eye as well as taste appeal. Make new friends of old standbys. Don't forget, tomato cheese macaroni made with tomato soup is a new, quick, and easy dish that's welcome and amply satisfying at any lunch or supper. There are many other baked dishes made with soup that will make a hit with your family. Let me show you something special. For a tender, light souffle, use cream of chicken soup. Your souffle will hold up longer, too, and taste delicious. Use the cream of chicken soup, just as it comes from the can, in place of the regular cream sauce. Another tempting baked dish made with chicken soup is chicken pie. The extra rich chicken flavor makes this a favorite with good cooks everywhere. Cream of mushroom soup is another invaluable cooking ingredient. Use it instead of the old-fashioned white sauce in the ever-popular casseroles. The flavor of tuna and mushroom is a made-for-each-other combination. Another quick treat with mushroom soup is mushroom muffins. Use condensed cream of mushroom soup as the liquid in quick breads like these. Here are muffins with a different twist, a subtle new flavor. One way to make an everyday dish taste better. If it's baked goods you like, come over here. You'll be amazed and delighted to know that this cake was made with tomato soup. Your cake will have a spicy, mellow flavor and retain moisture longer when you use condensed tomato soup instead of milk. Soup salads are another quick, easy way to party delicacies. Doesn't this look delicious? The color and flavor of chicken cranberry salad make it a perfect everyday dish or party fare. To make this salad, add unflavored gelatin to cream of chicken soup. Mix thoroughly and pour it into a mold. Then place the chicken layer in the refrigerator until the salad is firm. When the chicken layer is firm, add a cranberry layer to the molded salad for taste and color contrast. Then return it to the refrigerator until ready to serve. The more women try soup salads, the more they use them, for they're easy to make and so good to eat. Soup is a natural way of getting flavor into salads. And have you tried salad dressings made with soup? Just mix oil, vinegar, seasonings, and tomato soup for an excellent French dressing. It's good on vegetable or fruit salad, adds spiciness and color. And the flavor of tomato blends with practically any other flavor. The recipes for the dishes we've made, and many, many more, are in this free recipe booklet, and I'll be very glad to send it to you. Just write to me, Ann Marshall, Campbell Soup Company, for your copy of our newest recipe booklet. If, like everyone else, you're looking for new ways to add variety and interest to your meals, well, here's the answer. This little book, plus your own home soup shelf. Try equal parts of clam chowder, tomato soup, and milk or water for a hearty, tangy soup that'll satisfy the heartiest appetite. Cream of chicken with cream of asparagus is another delicious combination. And puree mongol, equal parts of tomato, green pea, milk, and water, wins rave notices every time. For a delicious jellied consommé, chill the consommé in the unopened can in the refrigerator for about 4 hours. Then serve it just as it is. Of course, garnishes and accompaniments make soups even more appealing. The flavor of chicken and parsley are a wonderful twosome. Crisp bacon bits add zest to cream of mushroom. Cheese-flavored snacks go well with many soups. Just let your imagination be your guide. When you're really hungry, there's just nothing like a bowl of steaming hot soup. And do you know why these soups are so good? To find out, let's consult the people who have made soup a career.
Here at Campbell's, infinite care and painstaking attention to details go into the preparation of the soups. Soups that put magic in mealtime. There is nothing left to chance. Every ingredient is given a most thorough inspection. Meats and chickens, for example, are double-checked by both company and government inspectors. With the aid of suction tubes that work like tiny vacuum cleaners, fine rice is sorted by hand, grain by grain. Too much trouble? No, not at all. Because these soups must be of unvarying fine quality. Quality ensured by having much of the food preparation work done just as it is in the finest home kitchens. There is no substitute for good old-fashioned handwork. Yes, each ingredient must truly be from the cream of the nation's crop, superior in color, flavor, texture, and nutritive value. And if the best obtainable is not good enough, something better is developed. For example, the fine tomatoes used in Campbell's tomato soup. Our experimental farms are devoted to the never-ending work of developing better farm practices and finer produce to enhance the flavor and nutritional qualities of the soups. Over 40 years of research have gone into the development of the tomatoes, which are specially grown for Campbell soups. Many types of soil are tested for fertility. Growers are shown how to improve their soil in order that plants will have the proper soil foods. Promising varieties of tomatoes are crossed with others, then crossed again, until the desired characteristics of firmness, hardiness, high nutritional value, uniform ripening, deep color, delicious flavor are combined in a single fruit. And today, thousands of farmers grow these fine tomatoes for the soup most folks like best. Such developments take almost endless time, extreme patience, and just plain hard work. But it all pays off in better methods of farming and higher yields for the grower, in finer vegetables and better soups for you. Each farmer's load of the finest tomatoes the growers can deliver is carefully graded by government experts for color and smoothness. For Campbell's soups must look as good as they taste. And Campbell's offers farmers a cash incentive to deliver finest tomatoes. Unsurpassed cleanliness. The tomatoes are washed not less than 5 times, and then inspected one by one. Only the best find their way into Campbell's tomato soup. Prime ingredients, the cream of the crop, handled with skillful attention to every detail to ensure quality and zestful flavor, is the secret of this magic in mealtime. Yes, America has become a soup-loving nation. Today and every day, millions of people eat soup for lunch. Soup and a salad is a favorite luncheon all over the country. Another luncheon favorite is soup and a sandwich. And still another is soup and dessert. But whether it's soup for lunch, soup for baby's first solid food, soup is the family favorite. The party dish, the heart of the meal. It's good for you, and everyone likes soup. For soup helps to make every meal a delightful meal. A feast for the eye, appetizing, delicious. Yes, good.
So, this is a SMPTE jitter and weave test film. And SMPTE, of course, is the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. And they would sell a collection of test films that could be used to test out equipment. I think in the past, maybe a year ago, I showed a color test film, which had of course faded, for color television. And this one is for testing the equipment to see if there's a problem with the gate or with the way that the film is going through the path. You have some consistent little markers here that will let you see if there is a flutter. So they made a variety of these different tests, and these are getting actually harder to find. I ended up getting a bunch of these, and I think they're all the jitter and weave test on eBay, because I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I can use this to test my telecines or my scanners. But yeah, this is used for calibrating and for adjusting 16 millimeter film chains or projectors. A film chain, of course, is an early version of a telecine. So, yeah. That's what that is. And here's the can. It's a short little thing. Yeah, pretty cool. Anyways, that's some of the odd ephemera that shows up when you have a giant collection of old 16 millimeter films. So in watching that magic shelf, I saw Ann Marshall was our home economist for Campbell soup, and so I looked her up, and I don't think that's a real person. I think that, like Betty Crocker and like Carol Lane for Shell Oil, these were kind of created entities that these different companies would use to tout whatever. So you have a cookbook, you have multiple cookbooks by Ann Marshall on using condensed soup, and I also see like magazine ads that feature an illustration of illustration of Ann Marshall, but that illustration kind of changes, and I don't think it really matches who we saw on the screen. So I think that it's possible that there were multiple Ann Marshalls that had different regions, and they would show up at county fairs, at home extension events, to tout the magical wonders of Campbell soup. Anyhow, thank you, Mitch, for the coffee. Very much appreciated. If you like what you saw, you can buy us coffee here at buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks. Caffeine is a wonderful boost that helps us jitter and weave throughout the day. You can also go to avgeeks.com and see other shows that we put online. And you can hit like and subscribe. So one of the things I noticed when I was looking at the copyright claims for the show where I showed the 2000th film, they're all claims against year 1999 AD, which is in public domain. And so I have to actively fight these on YouTube to get that restored. And that's what we do. Every day I get some sort of notification that I've shown something, or there's some music that was copyrighted, and I have to like go in and click it. In some cases it's a legitimate claim, it doesn't really affect me. In some cases it's someone who used our footage in a music video and their label has trying to bring the hammer down on us. So it's all very frustrating, but you know, it's all about you guys watching this stuff, so it's worth the frustrations, especially with all your fine comments and your buying of our coffee, buying us coffee, etc. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you again tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Tomorrow is Silent Movie Day, so I'm trying to figure out which silent movie I'm going to show, and it's not going to be one that you know. It's going to be one that I have in my collection that hasn't seen the light of day. Nobody knows about it. It wasn't shown in theaters, I don't think. But it's something that when I first acquired them, they were under copyright. But because the copyright law is now letting things fall into public domain again, these fell into public domain as I was holding on to them. So that's one reason I need to hold on to my films, even if they're not in public domain now. They might be at some point. So anyways, join us tomorrow. You'll see something you've never seen before. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon. Take care.